for sure. She has used that philosophy to build an award-winning CS team at FloQast. They scaled from 5 million to 40 million ARR in just 3 years. Just a quick note, feel free to write your questions on chat and we'll take it up at the end. I would now request Sarah to take up the stage and start. Hi, so first of all, everyone, sorry for the delay. I think, Sarah, I've already given your introduction, so I feel in the interest of time, we can straight away start off with you talking about the importance of CS in the scaling organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so sorry for the technical delays, everybody. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today. I'm Sana Farooq. I'm the Director of Customer Success at FloQast. And today we'll be chatting about the modular role of the Customer Success Manager and how the role evolves as you scale your organization from 5 million and above. So if you don't mind, can I share my screen?
Yeah, please, you can.
Okay, perfect. So just to give you guys a little bit of background about me, I've been building customer success and operations functions within high growth startups and SMBs for the better part of 9 years now. And my passion for the space has only grown exponentially over time. I started at FloQast just 3 years ago, around the 4.5 million ARR mark, when we were just a department of 10 very passionate and scrappy people. And coming from a background of operations, I was really drawn to the growth side of our business and was passionate about infrastructure and systems and processes to ensure that we maintained our high level of quality as we continue to grow and hire more people onto the team. So now we are an award-winning department, close to 60 team members strong, and we're nearing the 40 million ARR mark, and both of those continue to climb at a rapid speed. I'm also really passionate about cultivating a fun and engaging work environment for our team members so that they enjoy going into work every day. In a high growth environment and with the added layer of moving from on-site to remote to hybrid, I feel like it's even more imperative that we keep teams excited about what they're working towards, which we'll talk about in depth later in the presentation. So I'm really excited to share some of the learnings that I've had along the way. The biggest of which has been how much the role of a customer success manager has evolved right along with us as a company. And so there are 4 things that I'd love for you to get out of this talk today. The first is understanding the modular role of the CSM and where your organization currently fits into that definition. The second is how to determine what the key indicators are for that change and how you can set yourself up for success in terms of becoming the change agent for that transition. The third is how to hire the right people when the role itself is continuing to evolve. And then finally, how to keep your teams energized and motivated when those modules are removed or added from the role as your organization scales. And then hopefully, if we have time at the end of the talk today, I know we started a little bit late, I would love for you all to chat, type some questions in the chat. And if we do have time at the end, I'm more than happy to address those. So let's start by zooming out and looking at all of the different modular components that comprise of a customer success manager. And in light of us all being here today for SaaS Insider, I decided to make this kind of a representation of a SaaS platform with premium modules, just as we would in real life. And there's 2 that we can all agree on as a foundation, so I'll start with those first. The first is retention. Customer success managers near and far are all responsible for this first and foremost, making sure our customers renew. Regardless of whether or not the renewal itself is actually owned by the CSM, CSMs are still responsible for the entire year leading up to that contract getting signed. Acquiring a new customer costs roughly 5 times as much as retaining an existing one. So this part of their role is as important as it gets. And what are they doing for that year? They're driving adoption. Oftentimes, CSMs are managing a large volume of customer accounts. Maybe it's around 100, maybe more. And the majority of their day-to-day is going to be spent on ensuring that those customers are getting value out of the platform that they purchased and that the goals that they're initially signing for are being met. And when it comes to software adoption, the biggest obstacle that CSMs are actually up against is ensuring that a new process sticks and replaces the old one sustainably. And there are several different types of principles that live within the concept of change management, but ultimately it follows a very distinct and proven framework that ends up being a repeatable and scalable process long-term. And you can use that to drive adoption of new products and features as well. Next up, we have some of the premium or the advanced modules. And we're starting to agree on this one a little bit more, and that's product support. This is typically the first module that tends to break away from the foundation once the department starts scaling. Your product does not have to be technical in order for you to have a dedicated technical resource available. Some of the things that I would recommend considering when you're looking at whether this module is a good fit for your CSMs is to make the decision that your support team is a growth center, not a cost center. Our support team at FloQast is phenomenal, and they happen to drive leads and are actively involved in churn mitigation, but they don't even have to be doing that in order to be considered a value driver. That's because they're also actively driving adoption and retention of your customers. Not only that, but they're striking while the iron is hot. When your customers are in the application and they're making a critical decision of whether they're going to give up and revert back to their old process, or whether they'll wait for something to be resolved so that they can keep moving. And the product support team is pivotal in driving that type of adoption and ensuring that customers are happy, even when things might be breaking. And I'll chat a little bit more about why that's important a little bit later as well. Next up, we have sales. Typically comprises of cross-sell, upsell, tier upgrades, renewal conversations, that sort of thing. Some orgs branch this off and they have the CSM own the full cross-sell function. Others only have the CSMs drive qualified leads through CSQLs. Some things to consider when you're looking at whether this module is a good fit for your CSMs is how much training do you have room for? As I mentioned earlier, the sales function has been around for decades, and there are countless ways to skin a cat when it comes to sales. So if net revenue retention is something that's important to your company, which for most SaaS companies it is, you're going to want to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success in terms of maximizing the opportunity that's available here. Training is an absolutely crucial piece to that. So make sure that you have the budget and the time and the resources to dedicate towards sales training if you decide to use this module, because it's absolutely the biggest lift, but it's also the biggest opportunity for upside. And if you don't feel that you can invest those resources into that area, it may be a good fit for the AE teams to own. And then next up, we have advocacy. This is my personal favorite because it's kind of the culmination of all of the other facets, and it supports all of the right behaviors that you want to support in your CS org. It's the result of high adoption, and it leads to retention and expansion. And ultimately, it determines whether your customers are going to sell your product for you. Happy customers drive leads right back into the top of the funnel, right? Through referrals, repeat buyers, selling into the parent company, that sort of thing. And strong advocates of the brand are likely to purchase more with a brand that they already trust. And it makes the application that much more sticky and difficult to remove as well. When happy customers are leveraged as advocates, 79% of companies saw significant increases in upsell and cross-sell opportunities, and 92% saw increased credibility with their customers. So the most important thing to consider when you're evaluating this module is that it's a high volume activity, it does not scale easy, and it involves working really successfully cross-departmentally with marketing, sales, and product. When you're layering this in, you want to make sure that you have a solid backend in place in order to track those activities. At FloQast, we incentivize this through a contest, which I'll get into in a bit. But if you're sitting in the seat of a CSM, those are additional asks and additional tasks on top of the really high volume of book. So you'll have to make sure that you're working towards an efficient and scalable way to document those activities and to reward the customer as well as the CSM, because they're ultimately leveraging their best relationships and asking for a favor each time. And then another important thing to note on the point of advocacy is that they can be tracked on a one-off basis, but a truly customer-centric approach requires looking at the full customer journey holistically, and then ensuring that those touch points are maximized from a value perspective first, and then layering in those advocacy asks, like in different formats like email and in-app and survey and things like that. So which premium modules did FloQast pick? In short, all of them, at least at first anyway. And that's likely where a lot of you are at as well when you're in the up to 10 million ARR range. But over time, we started carving out parts of the role so that we could start maximizing the upside in each of those areas. So at the 5 million ARR mark, support was the first to break away. And it was important for us to draw a line in the sand in terms of our CSM's time. And it was also the best experience for our customers. They could be spending an hour investigating a support issue, or they could be spending an hour putting together a strategic plan for customers, right? And so we started reaching 17-minute SLAs for our customers once we started doing that. Now we're breaking out renewals and cross-sells into its own separate function. And it kind of became an essential next step for us. As our platform became increasingly more complex, we were hiring in multiples, and we needed to maintain subject matter expertise and maximize NOR potential. And that can become quite a challenge when you're hiring in multiples like that. And I've listed out some of these, and I'm trying to speed through this here for the interest of time, but I've listed out some of these early indicators here as well so that you can determine whether you might be ready for some of those changes yourself within the organization. So I know this is probably overwhelming in the sense of, how on earth do I hire the right people with the right skill sets if the role itself, it tends to be a moving target, right? And so it's a fair question, and that's what I wanted to spend some time on as well. Because if you think back to the modules we broke down earlier, the role does ask a lot of our CSMs, and each of those skill sets require their own breadth and depth of knowledge. We didn't even touch upon project management, change management, the level of product expertise that's required, and I could go on and on. So the number one biggest thing that I would stress to anyone looking at making their first few CSM hires is that these are going to be your pseudo scalers. And what I mean by that is that these are typically the hires that are handling all of your customer accounts. They're kind of in the jack of all trades role. So they have all of the top themes and trends within your customer base that nobody else in the company will have visibility into. So you want to make sure that you have a keen interest in learning the business just as much as your product.
Right.
So I know that I'm coming up on time. Do we want to head into questions, or do we want to stay on the track here?
I think we should stay on the track here because it's a very interesting thing, and we would love to complete the thought process which you want to share with us. For questions, we might reach out to you offline on LinkedIn or Twitter and get it addressed.
Yes, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer questions offline as well. So I do apologize that we're having to rush through it. All right, so what I also want to stress in terms of the jack of all trades hires is that these, usually the best hires for these are the ones that are looking to transition into customer success from a parallel industry. They're kind of looking for their big break. And I personally mentor a lot of these individuals, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're hungry, eager, ultra talented. They're looking to prove themselves, and they're kind of the perfect jack of all trades hire. And then by hiring these individuals, you're also helping them determine what areas of CS that they're also interested in long term. So it ends up being a win-win on both sides. And then the other half of that coin is in the 10 million to 30 million ARR range. You're going to want to be able to scale processes just as fast as you're hiring. And things are going to be moving really quickly, so hiring people that are adaptable and comfortable with ambiguity will be key. So high-level tips when you're looking to hire good talent is to hire for the role that it will be in a year's time, and not just today. And try meeting them there too with your questioning. So one of the questions that I typically ask each and every single hire in their final interview is, let's say that we hired you and you're a year into your role at FloQast. What are some of the things that you would be evaluating at that point in time to determine whether you were happy in the role or whether you were looking to make a move. And that question is a really direct way for me to get right into the root of their long-term motivations as an employee and whether I can even meet those needs throughout the next year. And it also helps the manager set that team member up for success as well. So how do we keep CSMs engaged during transitions this large? Their comp is regularly evolving, their day-to-day is shifting, they're regularly navigating ambiguity and gray areas in their roles and responsibilities. And the first thing that I would recommend is to CSM the transition itself. Take the same approach to your customers that you do for your employees. Set clear milestones, an action plan, guide them through the transition, and then the same way you would do QBRs for your customers, do those types of check-ins for your employees as well so that they can provide feedback along the way.
Right.
And something that we tried earlier on was gamifying parts of the role that we were struggling to get CSMs to adopt. And one of those areas was around advocacy. And so in order to support them in not getting burnt out and withdrawn from so many advocacy asks from all of these different departments, we decided to roll out a contest that awarded points for each request that was fulfilled by a CSM. And every 5 points gets them $5 in FloQash, and it's entered into their FloQast checking account. And then at the end of the quarter, they can redeem that for any kind of big ticket item that they want for themselves. And now we have 100% participation rate across the team, and it creates a lot more of a friendly competition among team members as well. And we're regularly wanting to do those types of things to motivate our team members. I have another several examples of that, but just in the interest of time, I'll kind of skip over those. So when we're looking at the way that the role of a customer success manager evolves right alongside with the organization as it scales, it's very easy to kind of let go of the reins and allow the CSM role to become kind of a cost center that's just focused on trainings and QBRs. And what happens is that the CSMs also start to feel less invested in the role because parts of the role are getting carved away, especially the ones that they're enjoying and investing time into building up their experience level. So, what I would recommend is, since they're not regularly receiving that validation of like a closed won opportunity or a closed support ticket or receiving shout outs in Slack, is to replace that with, a gamified approach. So as parts of the role break away, we can replace one reward system with a gamified approach to another. So I would encourage everyone to lean into the fun aspects of the transition first and foremost, to ensure that our teams also feel excited and energized for the changes to come as well. So that was my speed version of the topic. And again, I sincerely apologize for all the technical difficulties at the beginning. I've included a link to my LinkedIn, so I would love to keep in touch with all of you. Feel free to reach out. If you'd like to follow FloQast on Instagram, we're also hiring across every department, so check out our careers page. And that wraps it up on my end.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. I think it was great overall. We would love to connect with you. There are some thoughts which I want to discuss with you offline. And obviously, I'm sure that a lot of us would have similar thoughts, questions to reach out to you for. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll have to end the session for now.
Thanks, you so much, everybody. It's great to meet you.
Bye-bye.